Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? Saints are back on the practice field. Means we get to check in with Ross Jackson, Locked On Saints, and LouisianaSports.net. He's on Twitter at Ross Jackson Nola. How are you, man?
Hey, buddy. Doing great. Glad to be here.
Hey, let's get to the news with Justin Simmons. By the way, first, any update there with Simmons? What do we know?
So we know that the visit is this afternoon. So it is either ongoing at this moment or is coming up soon, depending upon exactly when his arrival time was. We asked Dennis Allen a little bit about it. He said that he feels that the safety position isn't a position that they felt that they need to go and run to address. But when there's a player as talented as Justin Simmons left on the field or left on the street, you go and try to sign that guy. He mentioned that there was some earlier connection with him in the spring. He wasn't able to completely pinpoint it, but he believed it was after the draft, where it was financials and things like that that kind of kept them apart. Apparently, whatever has changed, they're closer now in terms of what those numbers might look like. So that is what has kind of brought upon this visit. And from what I would take from it, just putting two and two together, the Saints are not desperate to add to the safety room. Justin Simmons is looking for a gig. Now they're closer on the numbers. I imagine this means that Justin Simmons' asking price may have come down.
Okay, that makes a ton of sense. What though do we make of the current safety situation where Dennis Allen today said outside of Tyrann Mathieu, they're not settled there. So does that mean they're not as high right now on Jonathan Abram, Jordan Howden, Will Harris? What do we make of the guys outside of Tyrann that are there right now, Ross?
Yeah, I think that they like the guys that they have. It's just that the position battle is still ongoing at this time. And so when you have a position battle that's still ongoing, Jonathan Abram, Jordan Howden, in particular, those two guys, when it comes to who's lining up next to Tyrann Mathieu, you're always going to look for other options that might be able to come in and be a part of that competition as well. Now, we should make no mistake about it. If Justin Simmons is signed, there's no conversation around competition anymore. Justin Simmons is your starter next to Tyrann Mathieu, and then you figure out how to maximize both of those guys. So that's where things maybe change. But I don't think that the Saints are in a situation where they're disappointed with what they have at safety. But I think that they are always looking to, and I think we've seen this in the secondary in particular with this team for years, Schnorr Jenkins, Paulson Adebo, Alante Taylor, Kool-Aid McKinstry. They're always looking to add talent even when they have talent. I think this is just another example of that.
Okay. That would be, look, I think we'd all agree wholeheartedly. You make your team better, you get a guy like that. And Ross, I would think this would probably be something like a one-year deal like with Chase Young and Willie Gay. I can't imagine this would be any type of a long-term thing. So come on and prove it. I love it. The unofficial depth chart was released yesterday. Since you and I didn't have a chance to talk, two things stood out to me, so I'd love your take. Haener over Rattler at number 2 QB, and then Lucas Patrick as the first left guard. Either of those things stand out for one reason or another to you?
Yeah, I think that the Haener thing is probably a little bit more of the seniority conversation. That's sort of what we have seen them do throughout the time when you look at who got the first set of second-team reps from OTAs and training camp and all of this stuff. Jake Haener was always the first one to get that, which makes sense. He's been in the system before, or not been in the system before, but he has been with the team longer. So typically the Saints will kind of lean towards seniority. The funny thing, though, is that then flies in the face of the Lucas Patrick situation that you're asking about. We also saw it with Jordan Howden listed ahead of Jonathan Abram, another one that kind of flies in the face of that. But at the quarterback position, that's typically how the team handles that. When it comes to the Lucas Patrick situation, though, I think that that's a little bit of a real indication of where the Saints are on their offensive line right now. Lucas Patrick, to me, is the favorite to start at left guard week 1. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that Nick Saldiveri has been managing injury again. And so he hasn't been able to get out there, even to the point where Dennis Allen, much like Kendre Miller, the first day of practice, mentioned Nick Saldiveri by name as a guy not only jostling for position, not only fighting to start, but as a guy trying to make the roster, he said, but dealing with injury. And so this is another example of a young player, a young asset that's got a lot of talent, but hasn't been able to stay out on the field enough to be able to lock down a role that felt like it was all his once camp started.
He's on Twitter, X, at Ross Jackson Nola. You know, it was interesting, Ross, with the Saints adding, the aforementioned Willie Gay and Chase Young. Now they're looking at Justin Simmons. All like big-name defensive players. My thought on this team would have been, if you're going to add big name talent to supplement, you do it on the offensive side where they've had a lot of issues. In particular, maybe a veteran offensive lineman, a wide receiver. Why do you think maybe they haven't been more aggressive? Or maybe they haven't, we just don't know it on the offensive side of the ball in free agency.
Yeah. There's a chance that they were aggressive and just didn't, and failed, right? And didn't sign the guys that they were trying to go after and things like that. But even if that's not the case, I do think that Saints invested in their offensive side by addressing their coaching staff as opposed to addressing their player staff. And I think some of that has to do with the fact that they believed that they were really talented on the roster last year, just didn't have the system to maximize the players and the talent that was on the roster. And so I think that they kind of went through this 2-year process from 2022 into 2023 where they addressed the roster. They went and got the new quarterback. They brought Michael Thomas back. They did all these things on the offensive side, on the roster side, and then that didn't work. And then 2023 going into 2024, they kind of flipped the script and said, okay, comfortable with what the majority of the offensive roster looks like, adding a couple of pieces like Lucas Patrick and Cedric Wilson, maybe settled them a little bit more. But then they made their big wider swath changes on the coaching staff. So that's the way that I kind of look at it, is that they're hoping that the coaching staff changes impact the offensive side of the football the way that they want the offensive side of the football to be impacted, and that the defensive side is adding more talent so that they can maintain what has been the strength of this team probably for at least the last couple of years.
Ross Jackson's out in Irvine. He's on Twitter at Ross Jackson Nola. Of course, subscribe to the Locked On Saints podcast, and you read his stuff with us at louisianasports.net. Be going live soon and looking forward to that. They'll practice tomorrow, off Friday for a travel day, play on Saturday against Arizona. Today, who are the standouts? Who caught your eye today?
Yeah, Jake Haener was a lot of fun to watch in his return. He had missed Monday's practice, getting a procedure done on that. That was a part of a treatment for that skin cancer that he was diagnosed with earlier this offseason. And so he was back today, looked really good, led a touchdown drive in sort of this drive simulation. Led a good drive on a drive simulation that they did where they were working down and distance kind of scenarios and things like that. And then threw a touchdown in red zone drills to A.T. Perry, who was my other standout of the day. I think A.T. Perry had his best day of camp today. He's had a lot of ups and downs. He's had a lot of drop passes, focus things, kind of slipped and fell at one point, and that created an interception opportunity for another player. Today, he was excellent. Big catches over the middle, big catches in the end zone, big catches in one-on-one, just did it all. So it was really, really good to see that. And then I thought Cedric Wilson, another wide receiver, also had a really strong day today. And that was needed because Mason Tipton, who's been the big standout guy, the undrafted free agent rookie wide receiver out of Yale, who has been the headline of headlines across training camp here so far on the offensive side of the football, left with a hamstring injury. So yet another injury for this team. And so they needed the wide receivers to stand out, and they got some really good production both from A.T. Perry and Cedric Wilson, who are my standouts today.
Last thing, and when we chat tomorrow, we'll sort of preview the game on Saturday maybe and what to watch. But anything or anyone you think maybe has a lot on the line or is worth keeping an eye on Thursday, the final practice before that first preseason game?
That's a great question. Yeah, I would say A.T. Perry's a big guy that's in that conversation. Can he back up and build on another big day? I think Jordan Mims, the young running back, is somebody that's got a lot riding on this Thursday. He's going to get a lot of opportunities on Saturday up against Arizona, but look, he's got to continue to stack the days that he's getting, and so this upcoming Thursday is big, and it's going to be a day that effectively allows the Saints to understand, okay, how much do we want to see Jordan Mims out on the field versus, James Robinson and Jacob Kibodi and things like that, the other running backs in the room. So I think those guys are big. And I would mention one guy that could use a bounce-back day, and it's Rico Payton, undrafted free agent cornerback. He's kind of been victimized a little bit by the quarterbacks here in camp. I'm sure a strong day for him before going into some, big-time lights-on crowd type action would be pretty confidence-boosting for him.
Ross Jackson, get him on Twitter, X at Ross Jackson Nola, Locked On Saints, louisianasports.net. I've been out there in Irvine. Doing the Lord's work, Ross, but it's also 101 degrees every day here. So I'm guessing you're doing okay out there?
I'm doing fine. I'm also missing the boil water advisory in New Orleans thanks to the Mylar balloon situation. So I'm glad that I don't have to deal with that either.
Oh, man. Few more days beachside there. Enjoy it. We appreciate the time. We'll talk tomorrow.
Absolutely, buddy. Take care. Stay safe. Talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.